Okay, so we're ready to call to order. Ooh, we've got some feedback. I'm gonna mute myself also, or not myself from my speakers. Has that been fit? Okay, good. Okay, so I will call this meeting to order at 6:07. We'll start with roll call. Ms. Nowak is absent. I am present. Mr. Sullivan?
Present.
Dr. Canby?
Present.
Mrs. Romero?
Present.
Dr. Ramirez?
Present.
Tammy, I see you on Zoom. And then Brianna Torres is here as well. Yay. So can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Do I get?
I second the motion.
For discussion, I just have one little typo. So in number 7, which is the minutes, it is a from the regular board meeting, not a special board meeting. The actual minutes are fine, but it's just the agenda. Okay. Any other discussion on the agenda?
So one of the things that we haven't discussed, but that I wanted to just bring forward, there have been recent changes made to an assembly bill, which allows boards under the jurisdiction of the Brown Act, or that must abide by the Brown Act, to continue to have meetings either remote or in some hybrid version. And it basically has to do with teleconferencing. Every 30 days, a board of an entity is required to evaluate conditions, their localized conditions, and determine findings. So for our meeting, since all board members are in person, this wouldn't be an issue. Moving forward, one of the things that I'd like to offer the board is that the board consider a resolution at the beginning of every meeting, so that every 30 days there'd be some discussion and some consideration about what format the board wishes to have its meeting in, and where board members fit in. So I'll have more information for the board around the updates around that could help provide some clarity. What other organizations have done, including PSA, is put forward, like I said, a resolution that addresses all of that and keeps us in the best, most compliant, keeps us in the most compliance.
Okay.
So I just wanted to make mention of that. Right now, we are still under local orders and mask mandate from our Ventura County Public Health, which obviously has a bearing on how the board would structure its meeting.
Okay. All right, then all those in favor?
But there's nothing on this agenda concerning that.
There is nothing, because all board members who are going to participate in this meeting are present.
But if we were a hybrid, we might want to say something up front.
If we were a hybrid, we couldn't have those, and that we're off-site, not participate.
Okay,
We
we
will
will.
not be in compliance.
Well, then we can continue today. So all those in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Or 0? Do we have any comments from the public regarding closed session items? Yes, we do.
We'll move into closed session.
But 4 is public comment on closed. None. Okay, excellent. All right, then we will move into closed session at 6:11. Okay, we are returning from closed session at 6:38. And no actions were taken. Cannot read my handwriting. 38. Okay. Okay, so now we will do the official Pledge of Allegiance. You can just stand. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from last month's regular board meeting on November 16th?
I move that we adopt the minutes.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Do we have any comments from the public to address the board? No? None. Excellent. Then we will move on to board reorganization and the election of officers. Do we want to say anything about this ahead of time, or we just want to start seeing if anybody has a motion for president?
Well, just for the public, I suppose, this is an annual reorganization where the board decides what roles, which of these roles will be fulfilled by which board member, and that's really the deliberation of the board at this point, and we're here to support. The superintendent has played the role of secretary to the board. So if that helps clarify at least one role, that would be fantastic. And but other than that, I'm here to support the board in whatever way possible. And of course, Ms. Torres is now part of our team. So I know we are very much looking forward to supporting the board in its work.
Okay. Well, with that, I guess I will take the lead. I'd like to make a motion for Dr. Hanby to be president. Would anybody like to second?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
I was going to move for you, Peter.
That's why I thought I would take the lead. And
I'd like to make a motion to have Ms. Dryden to be the board president.
I'll second the motion.
well, but will we, I believe we would need to vote on one before moving to the other, or no?
What? No.
No?
Well, nominations are open,
Okay.
and
so since both have seconds.
And so it's just a matter of, it's actually, you say, I nominate, and whether or not, then the person needs to accept the nomination. And once that, you find out that there's no more nominations, you close nominations, and have some discussion, and then we can have a vote.
Okay.
And top vote getter gets.
Dr. Hamby, do you accept the nomination for president?
I will accept the nomination to serve as board president.
Okay. Ms. Dryden would not like to accept that nomination, but she appreciates it very much. Any other nominations for president?
I don't think I'm part of the panel.
You're not, I don't see you. Okay. Well, then let's take a vote. All those in favor of Dr. Canby for president, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? None. So congratulations, Dr. Canby. All right, are there any nominations for vice president?
My nomination is going to continue to be the vice president.
Any seconds?
I'll second.
I would like to nominate Ms. Romero to serve as vice president.
Well, let's start with, do you accept the nomination?
I accept the nomination. But I also second Mrs. Romero.
That's fine.
I think she would be good. Anybody else? Steve, you want to get in the running too?
I'd be more than happy to accept. If you would like to be vice president.
Okay, accept. Accept nom. Okay, so anybody else for vice president? We'll say no, closed. Okay, so then we will take a vote. It's going to be tied.
Now it's time to ask, why are you supporting this discussion time?
Okay. So then,
Time point for discussion, you say, Mr. Sullivan?
so time for
Yes,
discussion.
this is time for discussion.
So then I guess I'll start. I would accept the nomination for vice president if you guys want to do that. So that's what I was this year. The one thing that we've kind of been talking about more recently is that, if we want to have a progression of these kind of offices or not over time. So if we want to hold one office and then just automatically kind of step up and then move to another office, or if every time elections come, if it, kind of, we either want to stay in the same position for a little bit, or if we want to rotate to something different, but maybe not in order of president, vice president, and clerk, and then just member of the board. So I guess my only hesitation about myself was like this year I didn't want to advance. I wasn't ready to advance up to president, I felt. And so if that's something that causes anybody pause, feel free, to go for Mrs. Romero, and there would be no harm taken whatsoever for personally for me. So those are my thoughts.
That we all have equal say, right?
Is she unmuted?
I'm sorry?
I don't know. Are you unmuted?
There we go. The bottom line is that we all, our voice weighs the same, regardless of whether you're president or not. So it's just the title.
Agreed.
So I was going to say agree and also reiterate Jamie's thoughts on how the progression has been, as you move up kind of through the ranks and the need to, have familiarity. I think in the past, the board, prior to my joining the board, they had not had established this progression. And there were times when either someone had to resign or moved out of district or could no longer serve their term in office. There was a little bit of a difficulty in some of the transition, and somebody had been doing it for maybe a little too long. And so I like the healthy progression to go on. And so that's why I feel like that's why I wanted to nominate you as in the progression, that if you'd be interested in serving the president as the future, if you would be willing to do that. So
I would love to. I'm sure I would love it.
I've already learned a lot since I've been part of this board. And like I mentioned it to Dr. Ramirez, I find it fascinating. I think it's quite fascinating to be here and to share our thoughts and to try to do what's the best for our school. So I'd be willing to put in a little bit of extra time if necessary to be more prepared as the vice president, but I'm also open to be any other role.
My comment as far as progression is concerned is totally moot now. It's totally moot because you were the one to progress. And, it's something that we tried, and we've tried this for several years now, and it's not worked. And so I say that it's not in the protocols, some that we've looked at, but it is what it is. and we just elect who we like to have in the position. It's obvious that the whole progression things, I'm this position this week, this year, and I'm the next position next year. It obviously didn't work. And this meeting is evidence of that. And I'm happy to support you. I'm happy to support Ms. Dryden. So, because I think you're right. It's right now, it's a title.
Okay. Then let's take a vote. All those in favor of Mrs. Romero for Vice President, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
All those opposed? None. Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so now any nominations for clerk? I will nominate Mr. Sullivan. He is an expert at this. He's done a lot of these outreach and community activities, which our clerk does to do in the past. So I will make that first nomination.
I'll accept the nomination.
Do you accept the nomination? Excellent. Just taking my notes.
This one you actually have to put your name on documents.
You do. Any other nominations for clerk? All right, sounds good. Well, then let's take a vote. All those in favor, Mr. Sullivan for clerk? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 0. Congratulations, Mr. Sullivan.
And Mrs. Dryden, I just want to clarify, for the clerk, nomination was first offered up by you and seconded by Dr. Campbell.
Correct. And then I would like to move that we continue on appointing the superintendent to the role of secretary of the board.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Excellent. All right.
Gladly accept. Thank you.
Congratulations.
I will gladly accept that.
No offense, Ms. Dryden,
I
but
know, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Dr. Cammy's now present.
Excellent. Then I will go on mute.
Okay, first of all, my thanks to Ms. Dryden for taking over tonight and serving as Vice President. So I guess now is the election of board members representative. First representatives to vote in the election for members of the County Committee on School District Organization. And that is.
This is, I don't believe is an election. I think it's just an appointment.
Appointment.
People can volunteer. I don't. Is it really an election?
Only if it's contested, but if the board wishes to simply appoint, that's fine.
And Mr. Sullivan, you've done this in the past?
Oh, yes.
Or which one? Oh, the first one.
The first one?
The County Committee of District Organization.
Yes.
Done that for the past many, many years. They meet about once a year.
Okay.
Unless something exciting comes up.
Are you willing to serve that role again?
Yes, I'm willing to serve in that role again.
Okay. So I make a motion to appoint or elect Mr. Trustee Sullivan to the member of the County Committee on School District Organization.
I said so.
Second?
Well, you can't make a motion.
I think I can.
Well, then I
Okay. Okay. All those in favor of Mr. Sullivan?
Any discussion?
Okay.
But that's fine.
4-0. And then the appointment to the Camarillo Chamber Education Committee. And I apologize, Mr. Dr. Maris, who's decided that in the past?
Mr. Sullivan was the last.
No, I've never served in that.
Wasn't it?
I know somebody else has served there.
But I
And
know that.
I don't know that they've ever met.
They have not met during the pandemic, the last year and a half. But I know that superintendents from this town, superintendents, Mesa superintendents in the past have participated, but that's also alongside board members as well. So I will gladly serve in that capacity if it would, because this is one of the few board authorized or board recognized committees that would be a part of it. So if the board wishes so, I would gladly be on that.
Okay.
Dr. Ramirez, could you actually tell us more about this committee and what it is they actually do, what their function is?
Yeah, as I mentioned, they have not met at the time that I've been here in the district. But basically, what they are is the Chamber of Commerce, and they basically inform on matters pertaining to public education status therein. And First Valley is part of that as well, because our Oxnard Union, because all of those two districts specifically, including Mesa, order on or have such accounts in that memory. So they want to say semi-annual. I think it's semi-annual. But they have not convened, so I can certainly serve that. But there are a subcommittee of the Chamber of Commerce.
I might suggest that Ms. Romero be a part of that, because part of this committee, this outreach, is I think to get community and other school districts. And it's not just K through 8, but it could be college districts, and also integrating with like other schools. And we're talking about how to build our enrollment here. That would be a great forum to be able to reach out, even though they're not necessarily functioning, but that's an avenue that we can work at and trying to encourage students to remain in district and stay in district, or come to us from other districts, such as like junior high, and getting, integrating with, one of the things is the college district and also the Cal State Channel Islands, getting businesses involved. I think having that might build a nice reservoir. And I don't know if we're limited to just one person plus Dr. Ramirez. But just a thought.
Is this something that would I have to physically appear somewhere?
They have in the past had meetings in person, but I'd have to get you more information on that, because they were not meeting during pandemic. So we can certainly get you more information. But they were previously being held in person. And I imagine at some point in time, they will resume this. I want to say it's semi-annual. So I want to say it's either semi-annually or quarterly, but there's 2 to 4 meetings a year.
Yeah, that I thought it was monthly, or
No.
if it's a handful of times, I'd be happy to participate.
Yeah.
So Mr. Sullivan, you made a
recommendation that we appoint her to that position. If you want to vote further, that's fine too.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of Trustee Romero becoming the representative to the Camarillo Chamber Education Committee, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And the next 2 appointments are representative for board member representation, the Mesa Education Foundation, MEF, and the Parent Teacher Organization. And those have typically been fulfilled by superintendent, correct? Okay.
Well, we've also had members from the board be liaisons to those 2 organizations.
Okay.
Having the superintendent, he's got a pretty full plate, but I think it's also good to let, especially these 2 organizations, know that the board has an interest in their success. Yeah.
How often do you meet with them, Dr. Davis?
Well, they meet independent, right? They just happen to be sanctioned by the district, but I want to say the MESA, the PFO meets, I want to say it's quarterly. Is that right? I think it's every other month or so. Is it monthly? I don't know if it's monthly, but I want to say, I'll have to look at my calendar. But the meetings are pretty succinct, pretty straightforward. They do work a lot in subcommittee, but in terms of full committee, I want to say it's at most once a month, but I want to say by month. PFO, I'm sorry, NDF has been meeting more regularly, but that had more to do with some beginning of the year events that they needed to coordinate. So those at most are monthly as well.
Do they need via Zoom or in person?
They both meet remote, yes, via Zoom. They have a meeting via Zoom.
And I have attended these meetings as parents. Anybody who's in the part of the PFO, you know, any parent who's part of that organization or MEF can attend as well. So they're not closed meetings. They're open to the entire community as well. I have not attended an MEF meeting, but I definitely have since they started going on Zoom, the PFO.
Is that something you'd have an interest in looking on PFO?
I'm usually attending the PFO
Anyway,
so it would just
so-
be, you know, which hat I'm wearing when I'm attending.
That's correct.
You know, I can do that if that's of interest. I do definitely think that administration from the school should also be present, but it's who's representing the board during that.
How many have you started to represent for NDF?
I'll second.
Okay. Any other nominations? Any further discussion?
Except that.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of Trustee Dryden being a representative to the Mesa Education Foundation? All those in favor?
No, the PFO, wasn't
Well,
it?
I would
PFO.
Well, you said MEF.
I think she was thinking PFO.
Are thinking PFO?
People who I attended.
Yes. Don't let me put words in your mouth.
But I also think it has the benefit of the same person being involved because they're both these organization groups for our community. So if you would like, I could serve for a role.
Okay.
Or if you would like to set.
Okay.
Well, are you interested, Dr. Candy, to serve on either one?
At this point, I am not. My commitments are getting a little
Yeah.
here, so I would decline any nomination to that. I would like to continue the nomination for Trustee Dryden to be the representative for both the MEF and the PFO for the board.
Yes. Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. All right. Can you accept? Okay. And any other further nominations? Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of Trustee Dryden being the representative to both the Mesa Education Foundation and to the Mesa Parent Organization, PFO, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you, Trustee Dryden. 4-0. All right. So that concludes our board reorganization and election of officers. So moving on to item 10, the superintendent's report. So Dr. Ramirez, to you.
Thank you, Dr. Candy, and congratulations on, I want to say it's your second tour of duty, pun intended, on the board as president, and thank you very much. Appreciate that. Looking forward to working with all of you, continuing to work with all of you in your respective roles as we head into not just this meeting, but 2022. Congratulations. Thank you. The superintendent's report. So I wanted to keep this report as brief and succinct as possible. So if you don't mind, maybe just presenting that. Okay, so the agenda is as it's been in the past with some updates here to continue. Still continue to, just for organization's sake, continue to deal with these big topics, learning and engagement, health and wellness, governance and leadership, which is board meetings are a very important component of facilities and operations, and of course, community and family engagement. On the health and wellness front, we've been in a very, very positive position when it comes to our ability to maintain ourselves in good stead with COVID rates. To this point, we've had 12 confirmed cases. None of them have stemmed from our school, but of course, the number 12 is a number that I think I don't want us to just consider. It would be important to consider those 12 in their totality. What the 12 is just confirmed, but the number of instances where we've had to quarantine due to exposure, those types of scenarios, particularly with community exposure, continue to be a daily and weekly occurrence. So our parents have been incredibly thoughtful on this front. And so you'll see it later in terms of reflected in our attendance. It continues to be reflected in our attendance in many ways. But those 12 are very encouraging in the sense that we are now in a place where we want to start broadening our opportunities for families, for volunteers to come into our community. So with that said, we have spent the last really about 2 months trying to delve into our volunteer policy. It's already in board policy, so we've not brought that forward for any revisions, except to add the component around health to be in alignment with health guidelines. So with that said, what you have here is just, we try to be very thoughtful when it came to the level of involvement that our volunteers have. Not every volunteer is the same. So basically we broke it up into two subsections. One is volunteer type 1. Those are volunteers that have direct contact with students and ongoing contact with students. And then there are those for whom in their volunteerism, they're going to have very limited interactions with students. In both instances, we have a requirement around a proof of COVID vaccination or weekly testing. And it's taken us a while because we are a smaller district. We are, just less staff, and we wanted to get our routines and procedures right. Where there is a distinction is mainly in the background clearance and TB testing. That piece, when there is no real communication or incidents with students, that we have treated separately. So I can get this to the board just in terms of our application process, which again is not new. We've just brought it forward in a more current basis or in a more current iteration. Okay, so that's what we've been focusing a lot of our attention on. This has gone through several cycles of conversation within our staff, and of course revisiting past practices and past adherence to board policy. So that is something very exciting on one front, because we are trying to welcome visitors and volunteers, particularly volunteers, back to our campus. But we want to do it in a way that's measured and that we can continue to stand behind. One last thing that I'll mention on this is that we did take a sampling of local districts and what they were doing, and this is fairly consistent with that. So the volunteer policy will apply to our coaches, our volunteers in the classroom, our co-curricular activities and such, and we're trying to bring everybody basically into the same guidelines. This is what I was alluding to previously. We continue to see our cases, our COVID cases, confirmed COVID cases, in a good place overall at 12. And we continue to monitor on that and work with our families around being very, very much driven by health and well-being. Around learning and engagement, something that we've continued to work on is the framework for the future. That design team was supposed to meet this month, didn't turn out to be the ideal time with everything happening kind of in the lead up to the holidays. So rather than approach it from a standpoint of a more limited team, we push that back to January. So we're going to continue to notify our team members. They were really great about notifying us, but there was a critical mass there that was lacking that we wanted to not compromise this process. A lot has gone into it, a lot of good effort, great discussions, and it is in a good place, and we wanted to just keep that moving at that pace. So we'll be resuming our meeting on January 27th, and with the eye toward developing and finalizing pretty soon a learner profile that then would come forward to the board. We continue to have an instructional focus on writing, but I think one of the things that we want to, just in this last leadership conversation with our teacher leadership team, we're discovering that in many regards, 2021, this school year, has presented us challenges that are uniquely different, and in some cases, believe it or not, above and beyond the challenges of 2020. And without getting into all the details behind that, I think that overall, the feeling is that we want to tend to the social emotional state of our students more intentionally, the social emotional state of our staff more intentionally. And so we spent a good bit of time talking to our leadership team about that. We drafted some preliminary ideas around how we might be able to address that and feel better about the state of where we are. But we've got more work to do on that front. And for sure, our professional learning focus needs to be more balanced and tend to those emotional and behavioral needs that our students have brought forward and that our staff is experiencing in their own right. So right now we're gathering that information, more conversations to come for sure, but there's an acknowledgement on my behalf, at least, that we do need to balance those realities a bit better and focus really on the whole child. We know we want kids to learn. We know that their schooling has been disrupted, and it's how to address it strategically in a way that's sustainable for us as adults and in partnership with our parents and families. So I just wanted to share that with you because it's something that just came up this past week in a productive way, but I think in a way that is going to allow us to think differently around how we launch even January. So I don't think that we're having disparate conversations. I think they're very much aimed toward some of the things that you see here as a learner profile. And this is just a draft in the draft stages, but we do talk about the academic component and how students should think, act, cooperate. You see that in the critical thinker, in the effective communicator, being creative. But when we talk about being confident, right, as learners, confident as individuals, you see there's some sub-bullets that talk about being well-rounded, happy, secure, and joyful. And the only way that our students can be that is if we tend to them in terms of their learning experiences from a balanced perspective. And for that, all of our adults also have to rally around that thinking. And we have to be in our own right in a good place to be able to provide that for students. So that's where a conversation, I think, will begin to flow a little more come the new year. But nevertheless, and speaking of being well-rounded, we had a wonderful winter concert. And I'll just tell you, I couldn't be more proud. I just could not. So many thanks go out to Ms. Wong. We were fortunate to have both trustee Ms. Romero and trustee Mrs. Dryden in attendance with their families. And, I don't know if you'd agree, but I hope you would, that I thought it was a quality event from beginning to end. I thought the collaboration with the kids was phenomenal. The pieces that they were challenged to play were incredible. You can see the musical progression, And just the program was very, 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 very well done. We have it videotaped, so we'll be pushing that out. And I think that's something that we recognize is a great ad. We had about 25 folks, in addition to everybody in the room, about another 25 actively, listening and watching from their homes or their respective locations. And it was just a really great gathering, that, as we head into the holidays, just an opportunity to see our community come together and celebrate, what kids can do and what they've been able to do as they put their heart and soul into this production. And of course, behind the scenes, from Ms. Kuklinski to Ms. Irene Ramirez, Ms. Jolanda Ramirez, our PFO, our MEF, all of these parent volunteers who were just fantastic in supporting us, it showed. And of course, all the parents and families who, in their own right, supported their kids' musical progression, their musical interest, and their passion are to be commended as well. So if I'm going on and on about it, is because I just couldn't be more proud of that show, and it just was everything to us. So I'll pause there because it seems like some trustees might have some comments, but Ms. Romero.
I just want to add that I was blown away by the number of instruments played at this concert. Everything from a saxophone to a pianist. I was impressed. I was like, wow, this is something that we can offer to students, incoming, potential students. You can come to Mesa, you can be part of this band and play any instrument that you're interested in. So that's something that really stood out to me.
Thank you.
To the school. Was it? As soon as possible.
Yeah, we certainly will. We already have the recording. It's just a matter of making it available and putting it on our website. And we did share quite a few images and even short snippets in our social media, Twitter for me personally, just to put out there to the community. So anyway, yes, we will definitely use that as an added piece to be able to share about the programming that we undertake here. But I just, just couldn't be more proud of our kids and Mrs. Wong, who I know put a lot of effort into that, putting that presentation together. Moving forward, just another piece to learning and engagement that I know that the board has been very interested in knowing about is our independent study. Right now, we are with the onboarding and availability of vaccines for children as young as 5. We have seen that our families on independent study or long-term independent study have expressed an interest in coming back. So many of them are making plans to come back to us in January, and we are making plans to accommodate them and bring them into the fold. So that, I couldn't thank our teachers enough because they have collaborated from day one in supporting these kiddos in independent study long-term, and both Ms. Wagner and Ms. Garza, who have split duties in that in supporting those kiddos. So we'll have continued updates for the board there as well. Learning and engagement, an important piece just to bring an update upon. Last spring, during the LCAP season in particular, we talked about the need for us to onboard a new set of platforms for us to become increasingly data sound and data informed. It's taken us a bit of time to onboard our Illuminate Education platform, and we are onboarding DNA. So that is a way in which localized data about students will be provided by teachers. Just today at the third workshop, Ms. Wagner put those on, and so it was kind of an active learning, if you will. Teachers were invited to come in and troubleshoot with her and learn the platform, at least the starting points of that. So I'm very excited about that process moving along. The integration took us a little longer than we anticipated, but we've been now ready for about a month, and we've been starting to onboard teachers for the last, since the start of this month. So EduClimber is a data visualization piece that'll come a little later, but I think it'll make us more ready to be able to use the different data sets that we have to better inform and track where students are academically in every grade, really. Also, paper learning, that is something that it's an online tutoring platform, it's a learning platform. We are looking to onboard it in grades 4 through 8, and that integration is done. So we're looking to start pushing that out to our teachers so that they can get familiar with it first. We've been previewing it to the broader community now for about a month or so, but we'll probably have to have more meetings with our community about what that looks like with our parents and families come the month of January. But that's also very exciting because it's going to provide another layer of academic support for our students in all content areas.
I got a quick question there. Is there a way that, because we approved this like several months ago, and it seems, how can we get this to the students? Like, I thought they should have had access to it in September. They still don't have access to it.
Yeah, they don't.
And so come January 1, they should be having access to this, because I hate seeing the slowness of the machine deprive our students, because they're the ones that pay the price. And we got a great platform, we approved it, and we need to get it in their hands as soon as possible.
Yeah, I agree. And here's something though that's very important to bear in mind. The information that we are relaying and that is accessible is different than ever has. So matters of data privacy are different now than they ever were. That's one layer. So that means that there's a lot of data that needs to happen. And I agree with you about this. I've been frustrated by that, but I wish there were another faster way to do it, but there isn't. The fact is also that for all of us as staff, just consider this: we still have the background and specter of the pandemic, and how much to push in the direction of. We want to make sure that by the time our students have it, that our adults are cognizant of how to use that. And lastly, bear in mind that this integration happened because of one person, and that's Mr. Garrett Smith. He is our only computer resource tech on site. He has responsibility for over 560 devices that are issued to students on a daily basis. So when we talk about the integration team, I really am talking about one person. So that's what comes with being a small district, and it's not to make excuses, but it's just to highlight the reality of where we are. I couldn't agree with you more. I do want things to move quickly, but I also don't want to outpace the adults and the staff that need to put it in play to such an extent that they wind up with more questions that they can't answer, or frustrated adults that wind up giving up on the system has a lot. So it's been slow in measure. I think by the time that we roll this out, I think we'll be 100% ready to go by January. And we're going to start having our adults, our staff utilize it this week if possible. So I have a meeting tomorrow, an integration meeting, just to finalize the last pieces on paper. Like I said, with Illuminate, that's been about a month ago, but we had a series of workshops with our teachers because they're under a lot of pressure. We wanted to kind of pace the change for them as well. Around co-curriculars, you see that there, our athletics program is in full swing. We're trying to keep pace, but we have very, very exciting things. Our flag football team was in the playoffs. Unfortunately, they didn't advance, but have had a tremendous season. Our middle school boys and girls basketball teams are also already in swing. And just to reiterate, our health guidelines are specific to sports activities. One thing that was a lingering question with the board had to do with volleyball. So volleyball is a fall sport for girls, and it is a winter sport for boys. So there will be two teams, and that's something that we will have as part of our overall athletics calendar. Clubs, as Ms. Romero knows, mock trial is very much in full swing. So much so that we're looking at some scrimmages here on the near term, and even this week they're going to capitalize on this week to continue their practices. So we'll look forward to that as well. And then lastly, field trips are still on the board. So we'll continue to take those as we come. And this is an overnight trip that many 7th graders, 8th graders have cited in the past as being one of the highlights of their time here in Mesa. Quickly shifting over to facilities, the replacement project, and the board will have an opportunity. The HVAC and windows replacement project, bid proposals are here. The board has gotten background on this. Our bid is coming at $3,578,000. That is the lowest bid by Bonet Construction. We had a very successful time. I can't thank BSA, Ms. Peterson and Mr. Norris enough for their efforts on this front. And you know, we're bringing forward an item later in tonight's agenda about this very thing. But I just wanted to provide a high level view that we are still on pace for this project to get going here in the summer of 2022. Attendance, here's our attendance figures. I'll look at the chart here.
Wait, before you go on, can you go back to facilities? I appreciate the update on the facilities there. The report about there was sewage system issues. We just had that redone. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that was something that just had that had to do with just with the septic tanks having to be receiving attention. I think the rains exacerbated that, but we got that taken care of this past week. It was not a structural problem. It was something that just required.
Okay, because that's
comments that when there's more than one person unmuted, that they're unable to hear.
Okay. All right, so we'll slow it down just a bit. But yes, that happened to us this past week with the rain, but that was addressed Friday, Saturday, and finalized on Monday. And we'll put that on a regular schedule moving forward, but it was not a structural matter. It just had to do with maintenance issue that we'll get in front of a lot better moving forward. Attendance-wise, November, we did a double and triple check on those figures on 6th and 8th grade. They appear to be real. They are real, and they're very encouraging, of course. Of course, November was an abbreviated month in many ways because of the holidays. But that said, you know, you see that we're still not where we need to be in most grades attendance-wise. And that goes back to the earlier point about us experiencing just a lot of support from families in keeping their kids home whenever they're ill, and in taking precautions around sending their kids to taking their kids to the doctor or to physician or primary care provider whenever that happens, and doubling up with COVID tests and such. But our 6th grade and 8th grade numbers are really fantastic. I don't know that we'll stay there. I doubt we will, but it's very encouraging that our middle school students are attending school overall. I think that is a very healthy and positive trend. Lastly, upcoming events. This is not an exhaustive list by any means, but just to highlight that our Mesa Cares campaign is coming to a close here this coming week or this week, and that we'll have an event for our families this coming Saturday. Also on Friday, Nathwick Winter Banquet. So that was something that did not happen last year, and that we're very excited to have on the horizon here as we close for the holidays and welcome a new year. And that reaches the conclusion of the superintendent's report.
Any questions for Dr. Ramirez or any other comments? Okay, moving along, we're going to board members' reports and communications. Do you receive any correspondence that you need to be aware of? Dr. Ramirez, did the board receive any correspondence that we were aware of?
No correspondence.
Okay. Do any board members have any reports or communications they need to report to the board? Okay. And item C, any board members' interest or concerns that they want to discuss?
I had two.
Okay.
The first one was how excited I was that we're doing the Mesa Cares campaign again this year. I know it's hard with, still dealing with the pandemic, but families are so in need. So I was very excited to hear the PFO and MEF for taking this on and continuing to do this, and that we've gotten so much support in the community. So thank you for everyone for continuing those efforts to continue to support our Mesa community. And then the second, as I was watching the Camarillo Christmas parade last Saturday, I don't know if anybody else attended, I saw other school districts in the parade, different marching bands, and I said, why are we not in this parade? We are absolutely a part of the Camarillo community, and we have so many things to offer, just like we've all been saying tonight in so many ways. We have different sports, we have band, we have a great atmosphere and community. There were like tractors in the parade. I'm like, oh, we could lead with a tractor and have all these different other activities that show off our electives and all of our fun students and our variety. And so I think that's something, obviously it's a year away from now, but it was fresh in my mind. And I think that's something that we should think about participating in.
I agree with you, but it's just not the Christmas parade. Camarillo has other parades as well that we should participate in.
Mr. Sullivan, if you're aware of any other upcoming parades or events that you think we might be able to participate in?
Probably St. Patrick's Day.
Ventura has a nice St. Patrick's parade.
Mm.
I'm not sure.
Are we going to ask Mr. Ramirez, Dr. Ramirez, to look into participating in the Camarillo?
If we all like the idea.
I think so. The Camarillo St. Patrick's Day Parade, if we have something to offer for that parade as a school, if we'd be able to participate in that, if you could explore that for us, I think we'd be excited to be there. And I think we would be able to participate as a board also. I'm volunteering all of us to see what we have to do to help that come to fruition. Thank you, Jamie. Always good input. All right. Any other board members' interests or concerns before we move on? Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt the consent agenda? Okay. Okay, all those in favor of accepting the consent agenda for each item as presented? All those. Oh, are there any that do discussion, or did anyone pull anything out?
I currently can't unmute, so don't mute yourself. I had a question regarding ID. I think this will be a quick question. It's about the Ventura County report for investment for the quarter. I just wanted to confirm that this is all Ventura County schools. Looking at the investments, they're definitely larger than I was aware of them.
Yes.
So then the action for this is just to receive and file.
Just receive.
Okay, excellent. That's it for questions.
Okay, any further discussion on the consent agenda? Any other items? Okay, all those in favor of accepting the consent agenda? Aye. Okay, consent agenda 4-0. All right, so Our next item is a discussion item and public hearing regarding the California Voting Rights Act, which will be presented by Cooperative Strategies. So are they here?
They are. I'm elevating
Okay.
Mr. Schmidt into being a panelist.
Now, point of order, is this just an open discussion, or do we actually have to open a public hearing?
We had it listed as a public hearing, so I think it
Okay.
would be appropriate to open a
Okay.
public hearing at this point.
Okay.
And it is, let's see. It is
Okay.
listed as such, so yes.
Okay, so we'll open a public hearing at 7:34 p.m. to hear the presentation from the Cooperative Strategies regarding the California Voting Rights Act redistriction.
And Mr. Schmidt, can you hear us? Are you able to?
Can you hear me all right?
All right.
Uh-oh.
Are you able to hear us?
Can you hear me?
I don't know that we have sound from you, Mr. Schmidt.
Testing, testing.
We can hear you now.
Okay, I think my headset. And Dr. Ramirez, would you like me to share my screen with the presentation or?
Yes, give me just one moment and you'll be able to share.
Okay.
And actually, Mr. Schmidt, if you, is it just the presentation that you provided? Because we can bring that up ourselves.
Oh, great, yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, and you can still hear me? Not just a nod, everybody's on mute. Can you still hear me? Trustee Sullivan, could you nod if you can hear me? Okay, thanks. Sorry, people were probably nodding, but I couldn't see them in my little screen here. Well, good evening, Board of Trustees and Dr. Ramirez. Thanks for having us back. I want to thank you for your patience as Andrew Bishop and I have had to sort of trade off on these presentations. As you know, districts all over the state and the country are redistricting right now. So attorneys and demographers, we're going all over the place, and this is a big night for board meetings. So thank you again for your patience. Some of this info you've seen already in the two previous meetings, so I'm going to move very quickly through that. So rest assured, we won't go spend too much time on the old data, but you could advance to the next slide now. So this is our, as you know, we've had two pre-maps, which are required in this prescribed process. And now we're in the first of the post maps. There's two required, and we have a third that we found is makes it easier for the transition process. So a decision doesn't have to be made in the second post map. We'll have two post maps. You can see on December 14th and again in January. And then we'll have a third meeting where the approval process can happen. Next slide, please. These are the considerations we need to take into consideration as we create the trustee areas. The first two on the left there are things we must do, and the rest of them are the bullet points are items we try to do as best we can. The first, as you know, it's contain nearly equal number of inhabitants, and then the largest trustee area and the smallest trustee area cannot be greater than 10% of the ideal trustee area, which is created just by dividing the total population by the number of trustees. We also need to draw them to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act, which means we don't want to dilute or the voting power of a protected class, or you can think of that as historical minority groups. Those are the two things we must do. In addition, we want to keep them as compact and contiguous as possible. follow man-made natural geographic features, and if we can, respect incumbency. Next slide, please. You've seen this before. This is your total population from the 2020 census. You have, the district has 3,628 total population. And you can see that the Hispanic Latino is the largest in total population of the protected classes other than white. Total population is what we use to draw to create the balanced areas and to calculate the variance between the areas. Next slide, please. So looking a little closer at the Hispanic Latino population, we're looking at the CVAP, Citizen Voting Age Population. Citizen Voting Age Population is a proxy for people who will actually show up to vote. So this actually is a very important number, which we look at to see, you know, if you can create an area where one of the protected classes has voting power, we should try to do that. That's part of this process. And you'll see that we have found that that is possible. So, but that CVAP number is important because it does show, it reflects the actual voting power of a certain area in a group. Next slide, please. Okay, so as we look at these, we're going to look at three scenarios, which we've submitted these early. Each of these scenarios are well within the variance. The first two are 6.1. The last one, I believe, is 4.5. Each of them creates a Hispanic majority, CVAP majority. So it's not just a total population majority, it's an actual CVAP majority. And that's that trustee area 1 that we'll look at. They all follow natural and man-made boundaries, and we work to try to keep them compact and contiguous. So trustee area 1, or for this scenario 1, trustee area 1 is that yellow area on the west side, and that will not change in all three scenarios. That's the area where we've been able to create a Hispanic majority for CVAP. Trustee area 2, running kind of in the south and along following 118. That area, we make a few adjustments in that through the scenarios. One of the challenges, as you know, in that area is the Ventura Youth Correctional Facility. So in other populations, the California Census has done a prisoner reapportionment where they've counted those prisoners for their home addresses. But for this prison, they have not done that. So in this case, we have consulted with the attorney David Soldani. And in this case, that prisoner population does count towards that area's population. And that makes up about 1/3 of the population in that area. Then we have, so trustee area 3 is that sort of peach color. And trustee area 4 is the blue color. And then you have trustee area 5 is the pink color. And as we show you these maps, this is our first round of maps. So you're looking for things that stand out to you that you like, certain things that you would change, suggestions you may have. I should also note that under the direction of your attorney, David Soldani, because the core population is so compact, we have had to break census blocks, which is in larger, highly populated districts, we would not do that. We want to keep census blocks together. But in this situation, it is completely normal for the demographer to divide census blocks. And so we have had to do that in the more populated areas. In the more rural areas, we have tried to keep census blocks together. So next scenario, please. Or sorry, just the next slide. So this is a very busy slide, but I'll just sort of direct your eye. That top, the very top row in red, you see the total population, which is going to be consistent, that 3,628 number. Then we have the ideal trustee area size, which will also be consistent. That's what we're trying to get each of the trustee areas basically around that number, not diverging too far from that number. And then you can see the variance for this scenario, 6.1. I'm going to direct your eye to that third row. This is where you can see in trustee area 1. So each trustee area has 2 columns: TP, total population, and the CVAP, the citizen voting age population. And you can see here that Hispanic Latino has 81.2% total population, and importantly, a 67.1% CVAP. So it is a strongly, they have their voice is strongly heard in that area because of that grouping. And then I'll direct your eye to the second row, the population variance. And so as we look at each of these scenarios, you can sort of see how by total population, the percentage that each area sort of differs from the mean of 276. And all of these, like I said, all of these are well within the 10%. The first 2 are 6.1. And so you can see that trustee area 3 is the largest population. And then trustee area 1 is the lowest population, and that needs to stay that way. So if we made it larger, we might dilute that Hispanic Latino CVAP. Next slide, please. So in this scenario, you can see that again, trustee area 1 in the yellow stays the same. Trustee area 2 expands across 118 North. And then trustee area, it's sort of hard to see, but there's some changes above trustee area 4 in blue. The pink area sort of moves in between trustee area 4 and 3. That pink area kind of moves in, and then the blue area in trustee area 4 sort of moves up and kind of creates that triangle. And then on the east side, that pink area comes down all the way to that border, the southern border of the district. Whereas before that was blue. So the blue area becomes more compact in this scenario. Next slide. And again, we maintain that Hispanic majority in trustee area 1. And the first 3 trustee areas remain about the same. The first 2 remain, well, they all 3 remain about the same in their variance. And the last 2, trustee area 4 and trustee area 5, do shift slightly. Trustee area 4 gets a little bigger. It's still negative there at negative 1.7 from the mean of 726, but it got closer to that. And then trustee area 5 got a little closer. It got smaller. So it's now just negative 0.8. Next slide, please. So in the third scenario, trustee area 1 in yellow remains the same. Trustee area 2, also in green, also remains the same. There is a very slight difference in the peach in trustee area 3. Just underneath that sort of finger that points east, that points to the right, just under there, a little sliver of a neighborhood went into the pink. And then that whole middle area between the blue and the peach, that pink area came down, and it created this, where the blue kind of creates this, it takes up the the eastern side. So in this scenario, you have trustee area 4, the blue, sort of being more the eastern side. You have the pink more central, and then the trustee area 3, kind of the majority of those neighborhoods in that central area. And then like I said, 2 and 1 remain about the same, or exactly the same. And next slide, please. And so just looking at the second row, the population variance, you can see, except for trustee area 1, which is staying the same, all of those variances are hovering right around 0. So getting much closer to 0, which gives us that the lower variance of 4.5. So those are the 3 scenarios we have for you tonight. And like I said, we welcome your feedback and input on things that you saw. And we can, if you want to see any of those, whoever's controlling the deck could kind of scroll up to any of those scenarios. But yeah, anything that stood out that you didn't care for, or things that appealed to you?
What's the goal again?
The number 1 goal is balanced population. And the number 2 goal is that if there is an opportunity to give a historical minority group voting power in an area that they live, we should try to do that. And so both of those first 2 things that we must do have been met. If someone's talking, they're on mute. I can't hear.
We're having some technical issues here, but
no problem.
I'm really concerned about this area 1. You seem so set on keeping that together as a single district, but it's so overwhelmingly one-sided that I don't see how that serves a purpose for them. And so who are the protected populations? And it seems that, we're not achieving the goal here.
In that area, it gives that area the ability to elect someone. Testing. Hello, can you hear me? Testing. Uh-oh.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, actually, so kind of trustee area 1 is sort of an example of the success of this this endeavor, in that community had a high enough population to create voting power. So there's enough of a population there that they could elect someone from that area. So it has enough people to reach that 726, or 726, and it has a high CVAP of a protected class. And so if for example, we made it bigger, you could dilute that protected class, which you don't want to do. Or so yeah, that actually is sort of accomplishing one of the main goals of this exercise, creating that area, that trustee area in yellow.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Did you get my scenario 4 and 5?
Yes, I received that. Yeah.
Can you comment on that?
Yeah, sure. I think it would be important that you share that. Since that was shared through the superintendent, it should be shared publicly in the meeting. If you could just explain your suggestions, and then I can comment on those.
Give me 1 second. Let me look at my
Sure.
notes.
Well, I have it right here. If you want, I could state it and you would just correct me if that would, because it might be easier. I mean, I have it right here in front of me.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Go ahead and.
Sure. Whoever is controlling the presentation, would you please go to map or scenario 2? Okay, so your comment sort of played off of this map. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but you sort of suggested a scenario that contemplates that green area just to the northeast of the yellow area, where that would become part of the yellow area. And that's part of it, right? That's correct. And then
that is one scenario.
Okay, and then part of it was where like a finger from the green, the area 2, would come up at the, I'm going to say this wrong, Saticoy Golf Club, Saticoy. And it would
a slither of it, yes.
Sliver, yeah,
which is a neighborhood.
And capture that neighborhood, yeah. And so for that scenario, it is there aren't that many people in that green area, the area that you pointed out that would become yellow. It would join the yellow area. We'd be concerned that if there was a lot of people in that area, that it would dilute, that CVAP may go down, and they may lose that majority, but we don't think that happens. We'll have to look more closely at it for the next round of maps, but it does look possible to create that, so that green area would be yellow. As far as moving that sliver, we'd have to bring more than the sliver. I'm not the attorney. We may want to have Mr. Soldani comment on that, but we wouldn't want it to look, it needs to look compact. And so, but we may be able to do that. So we'll play with that on the next, for the next scenario.
If you could look at scenario 4 and scenario 5 and let us know what the trustee area and variance would look like, and then we can consider it.
Yes, yeah, we will do that for the next round, yeah.
Thank you.
I'd also like to comment in the peach area, as you called it. You have a sliver that goes over towards the blue in almost every one of these. And to me, those are different neighborhoods. And I think I don't know if this is part of your census blocks or whatever that you made adjustments to, but I see 2 different neighborhoods there in every one of these. And I think that portion needs to be kept together with the other neighborhood.
I can see what you're saying, because it's kind of part of the golf course.
It is a neighborhood, and it is a slither similar to the one on the Sterling Hills Golf Club, and which is on all the other scenarios 1, 2, and 3. So I don't think that it would be unusual or off to have another slither. The pink area that I shaded that you may have to be part of area number 2. And then for the orange brown shaded area to either be part of area number 5, the purple area, or area number 1, the yellow area.
Okay, I understand. As that's, you're describing scenario 5, what you call scenario 5.
Yes.
Yes, I understand. Yeah, we'll look at both of those. And then I believe Trustee Sullivan, I shared that the sliver coming out of 3, that's actually part of another neighborhood and maybe should not be part of 3. And we can definitely look at that. It may be the case that 3 needs that population. I'm not sure. Maybe not though, because it is sort of large. So maybe that could go into trustee area 4. So we'll look at that.
I have 2 other questions regarding this whole map procedure. One has to do with, is there a deadline? What is the deadline? And well, there's several here, because I have in mind that when you look at the boundaries for this district, they were drawn in 1939. And the district bifurcates, there's roads that didn't exist back then. And there's, like Ms. Dryden's district, runs probably runs the boundary, probably runs through her backyard. Okay. And so it's just really kind of weird. And so would it be wrong to say, should we consider joining or working with the school district organization to say, should we realign these so it makes more sense for our district? Because we at one point in time had a member of the board of trustees here who was on the board of trustees because his mailbox was in the district, but his actual house was not. And so that's one thing. Should we look at realigning the boundaries and how would that impact your whole demographics? The other thing is it really doing anything is overall in our area, trying to accomplish the goals that are set forth, because it seems to me that we're trying to pigeonhole one demographic all into one area. And that just doesn't set well with me. And I know that there's groups of people that are trying to force that, but I feel like there's segregation again, and that really does not set well with me. I also know that there is litigation pending by the Santa Monica School District that is actually arguing this, and is it appropriate then to defer these decisions until that litigation is resolved?
So Dr. Ramirez, maybe next time we should invite Mr. Soldani, because I'm the demographer, and so I can't really answer any of those. I can't address any of those questions as my role. I'll be stepping outside of my role here. So perhaps we should have David Soldani join next time.
Sure. I'll convene with Ms. Peterson to find a path forward. Generally speaking, one of the things that we're anticipating, so maybe in terms of timeline, is the 2022 elections and trying to find our way onto trustee areas to time that election cycle. So we need to, that's part of the reason. Well, we bear in mind the act was, I come back to the same thing. The act is not new. So what it does is it opens us up to litigation. That's the reality of it. Now, whatever is happening in Santa Monica, Malibu, great friend of mine is a superintendent over there, and that had probably, without knowing exactly what it is, that has long-standing contentious debates and attitudes around the split between Santa Monica and Malibu. So that one, without knowing, that's not, I don't know how germane that is to this discussion. So all along, let's just start where we were in August. We are bound to abide by a law that has been longstanding. Every district does. My goal as superintendent is to provide the board with information so that the board can best steward the decision of the district. It's also my responsibility to inform you that we open ourselves up to litigation moving forward as we will be an outlier in the county when it comes to moving to trustee areas. We will. That's just a fact. Because many other districts have already gone to district areas or trustee areas, and we have not. We're not alone in that, but it's important just to bear mention on that.
It's actually the city of Santa Monica. It's not Santa Monica Malibu School District that's in litigation.
I think you guys need to be in person.
Were you?
Tammy, you were speaking. Did you say something? 'Cause I can barely hear anybody right now.
My statement was that it is not Santa Monica Malibu School District that is in litigation. It is the city of Santa Monica.
I don't think that's really relevant to us. I think the bottom.
Having to pay for litigation expenses.
Well, it leads me to another question though, is what happens if no one runs in what is proposed now to be district trustee area 1 or trustee area 2, which we've never had in the last 20 years. And it's not that they haven't had opportunity. It's like I'm saying, we've run with nobody running at all. So how do we fill those positions? And I don't know the answer to that question.
I think, go ahead.
Well, and the other thing is that, yes, many districts and cities have gone into trustee areas, and I understand that, and I don't have a problem with this. I'd like to do it prudently and just judiciously, and I also am aware of the fact that there's other school districts in the county that are deferring until the outcome of the City of Santa Monica litigation.
Well, but with regards to having to get another trustee to maybe fill in the seat for, say, area number 1, you know, we don't know. We don't know who's out there, and you know, we would just have to maybe advertise it and look for somebody. But I think that it is important for us to go from where we're at to a by trustee area.
In, you know, any day, really. But if we
I don't think school attendance, I agree with what you're saying, but as far as the demographics, the demographers are concerned, it's all about numbers. It doesn't matter about students. It's only about voters.
It's about, you know, 2 different things, I understand.
But I think for us to have a good understanding of our community,
Yeah.
we have to know both population and our students.
Sure.
So I want to make sure that I'm understanding your question appropriately. You're interested in a general understanding of where our in-district students and their families reside. Okay. Okay. My only reason for giving pause is because we actually have that map already, but without giving, I wouldn't want to disclose addresses. So we can work something out though.
But maybe numbers of kids in certain zones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can try to work something out. It won't be nearly as neat as what Mr. Schmidt and Cooperative Strategies, but it'll give you a general understanding of where our families reside. Sure.
And just to be clear, in the past probably 5 or 6 election cycles, we have always had to make appointments. And when we've gone to make appointments, we have advertised extensively to the community to say, we've got board openings. Please submit an application. And then we've gone where nobody's responded and then had to re-advertise just to get one person to put in an application. And so that is a concern of mine. And now we're limiting ourselves to saying, well, here's a population. They've been contacted, they've been invited, we've done a great deal of outreach to bring these populations into the community and onto the board, and it's gone unnoticed, and nobody's responded to that. So what happens when nobody steps up?
Well, I think that maybe that's a question for Cooperative. You know, if say we just end up with 4 board members and nobody puts their name who is part of the district, what happens?
It's the same. The board would appoint. The board could appoint someone from, but they would have to live in that area.
We would be less than percent.
We have a history of that.
Yeah.
Well, they did long enough for some. It's past tense. We can't do anything about that. There's no exclusion for one school. It's not restricted for that.
Well, look at that may have a significant play on how we should reorganize this. Don't get me wrong, I'm not opposed to saying that we need to have districts, trustee districts, trustee areas. I'm not opposed to that. I'm just saying that what they've proposed and what's trying.
This is one I think I need to come up. I think in addition to what Ms. Dryden said, is besides students, we need to know who voted in all of these areas in the last 5 election cycles.
Mr. Schmidt, is it possible to get the information of actual voters within the district's boundaries? Is that something that is publicly available?
That I don't know. That's not a question I have been asked. So I can, you mean the list of the names of all of the registered voters? And
More along the lines of the table, if I'm hearing the board correctly, and the board can certainly speak on their own behalf, but as I'm listening to this, it appears to me that it would be what's represented in page 4 around citizens of voting age. And I guess it would be of those who are of voting age, what breakdown of voters there were.
What's the quantity? It's not the name. The quantity of voters in each of these elections.
Just broad numbers. I don't know if that's something that's publicly available or not.
I can follow up on that and I'll email you. My guess is it's not in the census. It's not going to be in the census. The census isn't looking at who actually, it's not tying to who actually voted in, previous elections and, which elections. And but I'll get that answer definitively.
Thank you.
And
Okay, any other questions or discussion regarding that for tonight?
My only comment is that next time they should keep it.
Okay, we'll try to make a request, see if we can have in person or at least better audio, because we're having a very difficult time communicating here. Okay, so we will close our public hearing at this time at 2017 and move on to our next item, which is action discussion items. And the first item is item A, consideration of the adoption of the 2021-2022 first interim report. Can I get a motion?
Excellent.
Okay, need a second? Okay, first and second. Okay, so the first interim report, I think, Tammy, we turn it over to you at this time to present the first interim report.
Good evening, members of the board. It's my pleasure to I think there's some mics on. There's a lot of feedback. So it's my pleasure to present the first interim for 21-22. And there have been a lot of changes since we last spoke about the budget back in June. So if we can go to the next slide. As you can see, there have been some changes as it relates to enrollment. When we adopted the budget, we were projecting enrollment of 588 students, and we actually only have 566 students, which is a decline of 22 students. In 22-23, utilizing the current projections, we're anticipating a decrease of 21 students as compared to budget adoption, and then a decline of 17 students in 23-24. You have to keep in mind that these are just projections. A lot can happen between now and the end of the year. And there are some changes as it relates to TK afoot. We're moving towards implementation of a universal transitional kindergarten. So we anticipate, as part of the governor's budget proposal in January, that we will begin to plan to have additional TK students that birth dates will be pushed back to February, and over a period of years, at some point we will have 4-year-olds across the board in our transitional kindergarten classes. So that's just something to keep in mind. And as you can see, for our projected ADA, we're actually projecting a decline of -27, and that's greater than the reduction in enrollment. And the primary cause of that is I have lowered the expectations for ADA as compared to historical data, just because of COVID. And we are seeing a decline in ADA as a result of that. So 27 students in the current year, 26 and a half in year 2, and then 23, almost 23 students in 23-24. Our projected funded ADA is actually only down 1.7% this year, because as you recall, we're funded at the higher of the current year or the prior year. And since last year we were held harmless, it goes clear back to 1920. So we're actually being funded at 592.43 ADA, which is really good for Mesa because it gives us a planning year in order to make those transitions for 22-23. We have a decline, we're projecting declines of 28 students in 22-23, and then almost 25 students in 23-24. And then in our unduplicated pupil count, one of the things that we're seeing statewide is that there is a decline because currently most school districts are utilizing the seamless summer option, which means that families are not required to submit the free and reduced lunch applications. So they're not being incentivized to return those. And so statewide, there's been a significant decline in that process. And so as a result, we're seeing a decline in that count because it does include free and reduced lunch students, EL students, and foster youth. So we're seeing a decline of 3.23% in the current year, which impacts significantly your supplemental grant, and then 6.32% in 22-23, and almost 9% in 23-24. So as we get further and further out from the current year, that becomes more apparent. There's some legislative challenges that are being discussed currently in Sacramento as it relates to both enrollment protections, because the entire state is seeing declining enrollment, and actually Ventura County is second in the state for the largest amount of declining enrollment as compared to other counties. We're second only to Los Angeles County, which is surprising, but as a result, the districts throughout the county are experiencing significant declining enrollment. And also because of the current seamless summer option, and we're looking to have universal meals next year, we're going to have to really hit the ground running and try and get parents to submit alternative income forms in order to address that decline in unduplicated pupil count, because it can mean significant dollars for the district. So as we look at our current year, we see a decline of almost 48%, or $48,000, excuse me, and then $325,000 in 22-23, and in 23-24, an additional $332,000 in LCFF funding. Next slide, please. One of the changes that you will notice in the current projections is federal revenue is up significantly, and that's because last year, as we closed out the year, we did not expend all of the ESSER II nor the ESSER III monies. They have been included in the budget, but federal revenue is one of those things that we only budget when it's expended. So as you'll see when I show this slide regarding expenditures, you'll see our expenditures are up significantly, and that's because we've placed those federal revenues in holding expenditure accounts just to account for them in the current year, but we anticipate that we'll use them over the next 3 years, as we have until September 2024 to expend those dollars. State revenue is also up. We were gifted with 2 new categorical programs. Actually, as a whole, we've made a significant shift, and actually this is probably one of the more difficult interims that we've had to prepare in the last several years, as we went from, we now have 8 new federal categorical programs. So the one expanded learning opportunity grant that you approved last spring, which was 2 grants, is now 6 grants. So we're having to manage all of those in individual pots of money, as it were. But on the state side, we also have seen 2 new categorical programs, an expanded learning opportunities program, which can be utilized to lengthen the school day for after school enrichment programs, as well as summer school. We also, as part of the budget, have included the educator effectiveness grant dollars, which is also an item on tonight's board agenda, to approve. Other local revenue is consistent with what it's been historically at $897,000. It's up a little bit because we have increased Golden Valley's special education revenue as compared to what it received last year, but it is a pass-through. So it's seen on the revenue side and as an incoming amount, and it's an equal outgoing amount on the expenditure side. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So as I mentioned, we have seen some increases, books and supplies especially. That's where we place the holding accounts is within books and supplies and services and other expenditures. So those amounts obviously have been overstated just because they do include those holding amounts for the current federal funds. Next slide. And as you can see, I always like to focus more on the unrestricted side than the restricted side, because restricted funds have a very specific purpose and can only be utilized for certain school functions. And so as we look at the current year, we are projecting deficit spending of about $115,000. We have some increases in attorney's fees just because of the water adjudication. And so those increases have been included within the budget, and then some other increases in certificated salaries and benefits. We anticipate you also have, we've increased the amount for your certificated substitutes because in the fall, we had several out on maternity leaves and anticipate others to go out. So the budget has been updated to include those amounts as well. So we're projecting deficit spending in the current year of $115,000. That does grow significantly into 22-23. I anticipate that will shrink at second interim because the state is projecting a $31 billion surplus in the current year. So we do anticipate some increases next year, and we anticipate that COLA will be up significantly from where it's been because CPI, the Consumer Price Index, and inflation has grown significantly over the last few months. And so we anticipate a revision to that amount, as well as additional amounts for TK students. So then when we look at 23-24, we're also projecting deficit spending. It drops somewhat to about $400,000. We will utilize the federal monies that are in holding accounts to help provide a soft landing for the district into 22, 23, 23, 24. So it really does give us some planning time. I'm not concerned with where the district's at. As you can see, you meet your reserves. We with a ending fund balance of $612,000 in 23-24. Also, if you recall, when at unaudited actuals, we did push monies to some of your other funds. Next slide, please. So as I just mentioned, when you look at your other funds, deferred maintenance now has $321,000 in that account. Pupil transportation has $251,000. We have a couple of reserve accounts in Fund 17, which equates to about $64,000. The building fund is restricted. We'll be utilizing that for the HVAC window project. And we anticipate that we'll have probably about $400,000 left, or $4 million, excuse me, after the window HVAC project. So we'll be able to address some other needs on the campus. And then in Fund 35, we have about $56,000. And then in the bond interest and redemption fund, Those are restricted for debt service. One of the things you will notice, however, is the revenue portion. In the last few years, we've seen significant increases in interest rates. And as you can see, we have reduced interest projections by about more than half. We're receiving less than 1% interest currently on those monies invested with the county treasury. So all told, we're in a great position as a district. We do have some time to plan and make those necessary adjustments to adjust for declining enrollment if we don't see students materialize next year. Any questions?
Okay. Can you hear me, Tammy?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Tammy, anyone? Okay. All right. So no further discussion. Dr. Ramirez, did you have any other discussion on that?
Can I ask a generic?
Oh.
So Tammy, I just had one question. It's a generic one, but if you could just bear with me. You definitely said that we're getting a positive certification, even though we've been talking about these decreased enrollments, which you did forecast for us in advance a while ago. So it's not a surprise. I just wanted to confirm that even though there's several items on that certification page that say not met, that we have a positive certification. So no additional actions or impacts, are on the district.
That is correct. To obtain a positive certification, even though there are some no's on that certification page, and I appreciate the fact that you actually looked at that page and reviewed it. The primary requirement is that you meet your reserve standard at the conclusion of your third fiscal year. And as I mentioned, we have over $600,000 still above and beyond that reserve. Mesa does have a little bit higher reserve than some of the surrounding districts because of our small size. And then as a board, you also took action many, many years ago to add an additional percent to those reserves. So we actually have approximately a 5% reserve as opposed to the 4% that's required by statute. And many of the much larger districts, LA Unified, any district that's most districts in Ventura County even only operate with a 3% reserve. So the fact that we have a little bit higher reserve and we've even cushioned it a little bit more is beneficial for the district.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or any other discussion?
Yeah, I mean, the other conversation or part of the conversation that Ms. Peterson and I have been having is around continuing to streamline our day-to-day operations. The board has seen over the last year, really, instances where that's been the case. This year, been focusing primarily on our technology budget, making sure that that is right-sized, that our contractor and partner agreements are right-sized, that we are appropriately going down and using only what we need. I think there's also just day-to-day operations right now that are elevated largely because we want to make sure that things are in good working order, and that has taken some additional personnel and hours. But I think our facilities, transportation are well on their way to becoming more streamlined, more just more effective. Sure. Well, right now we're looking at our transportation schedule at large. As we have seen a decline in enrollment, we've seen a commensurate decline in enrollment in in-district students. Our transportation routes haven't been updated in several years. And so I've been having internal conversations with our lead bus driver, with our bus drivers about what that means for us and how many students we're transporting. We needed to open the year and get that underway in order for us to really see day to day what that looks like. But there's an adjustment that needs to be made in that regard. And so I'll have more for the board in the coming months, but I'm anticipating that we'll take a close look at that. I can tell you that we were able to put some more dollars into our transportation budget, largely because we need to start anticipating the future as well. Our vehicles are beginning to show their age a little bit. And at some point in time here in the near future, we need to consider what the status is and at what point in time we purchase whether it's a new vehicle or another bus in good stead. Those are all options that we're considering, but we've got the reserves in our transportation budget to be able to deal with that, right? Because the longer our fleet is out there, the more that it's going to cost in maintenance and upkeep to an older fleet of vehicles. So it's just one example. This year, my target to start the year was getting our technology needs in order, as well as our transportation needs. And I think both of those are coming along very nicely to where mid-year we'll see some of those gains start to show up.
Well, and can I also interject that we'll see at second interim some items fall out of the budget. I always approach first interim very conservatively. There are some areas of the budget where because of the federal funds that we have and utilization of those, that we'll see some freeing up of unrestricted dollars. And the other piece is we are anticipating a reimbursement for the emergency connectivity fund for some of the one-to-one devices that were purchased. That has not been recognized because I don't recognize local revenue until it's actually been received. So we'll see some shifts at first interim. So I'm not concerned at all as where we're at in the budget. Again, I'm extremely conservative, especially as we go through the year, just because I want to make sure that we have the reserves necessary to meet the needs of Mesa.
Okay, any other questions or discussion at this point? Thank you very much, Tammy. Appreciate it as always. Okay, all those in favor of the adoption of the 2021-2022 first interim report as presented?
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 4-0. That includes the certification of the interim report too, correct? That motion also takes care of the certification of the interim report. Okay. Yeah, first day. Okay. All right. So the next item on the agenda is a consideration of the approval of the agreement for the window replacement, HVAC, and electrical upgrades project with Monet Construction Incorporated.
So Ms. Peterson and I are here to answer any questions, but oh, sorry, go ahead. And
I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you. All right. Dr. Ramirez.
Sorry, jumped ahead.
That's okay.
So just Ms. Peterson and I are here to answer any questions. I tried to front load some information for the board in my superintendent's report. So we're here to answer questions that the board may have.
So it always makes me a little nervous when you say we go with the lowest bid, because sometimes it's always fraught with problems, but I understand you and Dave and Tammy all vetted that out, and that this is quality work and they have good references, and that we have any type of
yes
associated with
yes
that.
Let me reiterate, actually we're not the only ones that do that vetting. In fact, there's a third party quality bidders. They actually do really the biggest push on vetting. They need to clear all of the legal statutes, bonds, insurance, the list goes on. And Monet also has run a local, is completing a local job that I can get more information on for the board as well. So the lowest bidder, it just makes, it's not to say that quality is anything lacking. In fact, our current architects, 19.6, have worked with Monet on a local project that Mr. Norris was explaining to me, that I'll be able to provide the board with more information.
We were extremely pleased with the quality of the pool of bidders. It was an extremely strong bidding process, which is, as you go into these processes, it always makes you a little bit nervous, especially because of COVID, especially because of the supply chain. But moving forward and being able to get this out early ahead of some other districts really allowed us to have the pick of the bidders. And so we're very pleased with the outcome.
Will they not be able to purchase anything until June?
Let me just jump on that one, Ms. Peterson. That's why this early process is so important. We have documents ready to execute and be in hand tomorrow. So all of the orders, everything front loaded, subcontractors, all that work begins immediately.
And just to also speak to that, to show what a quality, many times it's very difficult once you provide the notice for intent of award to get all of the documentation back as far as bonding requirements, etc. We already have those documents in hand from Monet, and so we're prepared to move forward immediately in getting things off the ground on this project.
Okay, sounds like you guys have done your due diligence and come up with a quality bid there. Any further discussion before we take it to vote? Okay, all those in favor of consideration or the approval of the agreement with the window replacement, HVAC, and electrical upgrade project with Monet Construction, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Looking forward to getting that project underway. All right, next item on the agenda is the proposed board meeting date calendar for 2022. Can I get a motion to
I move proposed calendar for 20.
Okay, we got a second from Mr. Merrill. Okay. Any further discussion or any questions? What's that?
Third Tuesday.
Third Tuesday. I apologize. I do see there's a special Thursday, June 16th, and the special board meeting.
There is. I added that. It's very consistent with what we did this year. It was to allow us to pace the LCAP and bring it in regular session, which is the statute, and then have the board approve it in short succession. If there's any interest in moving that date around, it's the only one that's an outlier to that pattern of Tuesdays.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the acceptance of the proposed board meeting for the calendar year 2022, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next item is the consideration and acceptance of the certification of signatures for the period of December 14th, 2021 through December 15th, 2022. This is required as we change board members.
Yes.
Okay.
As presented, I guess we're accepting.
So these will be signed by the new elected officials, and then we will accept that.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other discussion, any other questions? Okay. All those in favor of the acceptance of the certification of signatures for the upcoming period, December 14th, 2021 through December 15th, 2022. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? None? Next item is the consideration and approval of the MOU with Golden Valley Charter School.
I move that we accept the MOU with Golden Valley Charter School.
Anyone second? Okay, thank you. Any discussion regarding the MOU with Golden Valley Charter School?
Nothing's changed. Everything's just been brought current. All the processes, the review of their instructional program, fiscal oversight, all that's just been brought current. Nothing really has changed substantially from past agreements.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions in the discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the approval of the MOU with Golden Valley Charter School, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 4-0. Approval. The next item is the consideration of the approval of the revised classified confidential monthly salary schedule effective December 1st, 2021.
I move that we accept, that we approve the classified confidential monthly salary schedule effective December 1, 2021.
Get a second from Trustee Dryden. Any discussion or any questions regarding this? What's that?
There was only a change to the last step, number 5 in the table.
Correct. Only one change there. Okay. All right. No more questions, any discussion? All those in favor of the approval of the revised classified confidential monthly salary schedule effective December 1st, 2021. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries 4-0. The next item is the approval of the revised classified substitute salary schedule effective January 1st, 2022. And a motion for that? Okay, thank you. Anyone second? Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion?
Can I just ask a quick?
It's actually tiered and it begins at 125. So
like 1 day.
For 1 to 11, yes, and then it moves up to 150. So this is a pretty hefty change. It does bring us in line with not only all the other small school districts. We all agreed that there would be that change as part of our conversations and discussions as part of the BSA JPA. But beyond that, it's also bringing us on par or competitive, at least, with many districts in the county. The sub shortage is absolutely real, and we're trying to find creative ways of enticing qualified individuals to come into that workforce, even as a county. At our last superintendent's meeting, this was very much a topic of discussion. One important thing to note, and I'll be discussing this with our teachers, there is an impact that it could have that we're actually holding harmless to teachers whenever they experience a leave of absence. So we don't want that to negatively impact our workforce. So we'll be working up an MOU with them, at least I'll be looking to, that will hold them to present levels while still upticking the pay for our sub pool. That's the only thing that I wanted to make mention of that I'll be working on. But everything else is pretty straightforward, as you see here. She will be in the budget, and we've been able to and make those adjustments internally at this point.
Okay, any other questions, any other comments? All right. All those in favor of approval of the revised certificated substitute salary schedule effective January 1st, 2022. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 4-0. And the next item is the consideration of approval of the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant for 2021.
I move that we approve the Mesa Union Educator Effectiveness Block Grant for 2021.
Okay, a second. All right, any discussion, any questions, comments, Dr. Ramirez?
This is being brought forward from discussion last month. Nothing has changed materially from that report, and it's intended to extend a lot of the initiatives that we have started to put in place. And there's also already alignment to OCAP goals and other plan goals as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, all those in favor of accepting and approving the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant for 2020-21, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, 4-0 approved. All right, the next item, we're moving on to personnel. Consideration of the approval of the hiring the following classified confidential staff: Brianna Torres, Executive Director, effective December 6, 2021. Welcome.
I move that we approve the hiring of Brianna Torres as Executive Director, effective 12/6/2021.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
All right, we have a second. Any further discussion? Any questions, comments?
Thank you, number one. And beyond that, Brianna has hit the ground running for us. There's a lot to take in, and fortunately, we're gonna receive the help of BSA, and she's incredibly capable and eager to learn. So I think we're going to be in for some good things with Brianna on board.
All right. Well,
Welcome.
any further questions? Okay. All those in favor, we got to vote first. All those in favor of accepting the approval of the hiring of Brianna Torres as Executive Director, effective December 6, 2021. All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0. Welcome very much, Brianna. Welcome.
It was a kickoff.
Yeah, it was a tough one. All right, so items, moving on, the rest of the agenda items for future consideration. We have the 2020-2021 school accountability report card and the safety plan, which will be on our future meetings, and our next scheduled meeting is going to be January 18th, 2022 at 6 p.m. And that at this point is planning to be in person, with board members in person. So we'll plan on that unless we have changes within our local health guidance, correct? Okay. All right. With that being said, we will adjourn tonight's meeting at 8:52. Thank you, everyone in attendance.
Thank you.
Okay. Till next time. Bye-bye.